Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. My voice is almost back fully, about 80% or so. But tonight, I wanted to make a video talking to you all about Warlock Embellishments, the Eranog ring in Sims, and power infusion timings. I've been getting a lot of questions about that stuff over the past few weeks. Azure Weave Sims, Amis, Lariat, Shadowflame stuff, all that. So tonight's video should hopefully help answer all that for you guys. Like always, week course and add-ons, profiles down below, Twitch and Discord links if you want them down there. Social media links up here, Patreon if you want to support there, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, so what I've done here is I've run Sims for every spec: Destruction, Demonology, and Affliction in single target, 2 target, and eventually like I think 8-10 targets, looking at like an AoE Mythic Plus kind of scenario, trying to replicate all that. Now, you can indeed put Shadowflame embellishments, 2 of them, on non-weapon based gear, like no weapons, no rings, no main hand, no offhand, no rings, but shoulders, helm, chest, boots, bracers, belt, whatever, they can all go on there. Now, you're playing your 4-piece from Sepulchre, or from Aberrus, good lord, and from what I've seen, the off-piece looks to be shoulders, most likely, playing 4 pieces of tier being helm, chest, legs, and gloves, and likely shoulders being your off-piece, which look to be good on a crafted scale, as you can see here. In single target for Demonology, your highest simming embellishments from myself, using my own character, sims and things, look to be double Shadowflame on boots and shoulders. I currently have boots and belt made. Boots and bracers are an option too. I mean, TLDR, in single target, double Shadowflame does indeed appear to be the play. If you're looking at making shoulders, the tier shoulders are crit and verse, I believe. These can be haste, mastery, or whatever you want. So, I mean, there's a bit of an increase there. Plus shoulders, crafted at 447, bit of a higher eye level than 441, which is what I have now. But either way, double Shadowflame looks to be the best double embellishment combination for Demonology in single target, followed by MS Shadowflame here, about a 1.1k DPS loss, and Azure Weave boots and shoulders being Azure Weave set, about a 1.4k DPS loss in single target. Looking at 2 target, however, Azure Weave, about a 1.1, so a bit less actually, about an 800 DPS loss over the highest combination, once again being double Shadowflame, boots and shoulders, or boots and belt, whatever, what have you, basically double Shadowflame. Azure Weave, about 800 DPS behind. So closing the gap from 1.4 to 800 DPS. If you look at heavy AoE though, Azure Weave, boots, and shoulders are ahead of the next highest combination, which is Amis and Shadowflame, surprisingly, by about 15,000 DPS. This is an 8-target, 40-second sim, comparatively to a 2-target, 5-minute, and 1-target, 5-minute sim here. Azure Weave, boots, and shoulders, once again, shoulders being a tier slot, but, you know, hopefully off-piece, are ahead in AoE. It makes sense, big stat buff, all of that, but in single target and 2-target, Azure Weave is indeed behind double Shadowflame and things like that. Now, these sims here, I want to clarify also, all these sims, like this, the non-Lariat sim here, these are all with, I believe, either 4 or 5, I think 5 gems. I believe 5. The max is 7. With this Lariat sim here, the max is 8 theoretically, but 7 without factoring in the 1 intellect gem. This Lariat sim here, this is with the max 7 gems you can have. So theoretically, this sim has more power from having 2 more gems comparatively to every other sim here. But I mean, Lariat and Shadowflame looking to be not as good as Amis Shadowflame, to be fair. 700 DPS at 700k is pretty negligible. I mean, it's a 400 DPS margin of error here in the first place. But TLDR, if you're looking at later on crafting things, Azure Weave, boots and shoulders, once you have 4-piece and things and all that, look to be the best play in Mythic Plus. But once again, in single target, double Shadowflame looks to be the best for Demonology. Moving on here, Destro, same thing, double Shadowflame in single target, double Shadowflame, boots belt, boots shoulders, MS Shadowflame, Azure Weave here, being about 1.6k behind in single target. In 2-target, Azure Weave is behind by about 418 DPS for Destruction. Double Shadowflame again in 2-target. And in AoE, you have Azure Weave, boots, and shoulders ahead of Lariat Shadowflame by about 4,000 DPS. A bit more, because once again, this sim has 5 gems versus this one having 7. But either way, Azure Weave, once again, looks to be the best in Mythic Plus, heavy AoE, for both Demo and Destro. Moving on to AF here, pretty similar. Double Shadowflame. Boots, shoulders, boots, belt, whatever have you. Double Shadowflame is going to be your best embellishment in single target, followed by MS Shadowflame, and then Azure Weave, all that's set. In 2-target, double Shadowflame, boots, shoulders, boots, belt, once again, 2 Shadowflame, MS Shadowflame, and then Azure Weave and shoulders here. And like the other sims as well, if you look at the AoE sim, Azure Weave's pretty high, but Lariat and Shadow Flame is a little bit higher. Once again, keep in mind, this sim here has 7 gems versus these all having 5. So honestly, it's probably a wash roughly. I wasn't going to go back through and edit all these profiles. Too lazy to do that. But either way, it's basically a wash. So if you're looking at it from a larger, every sim factored into this thing, right? Azure Weave, from what I can see, looks to be your best embellishment combination of 2 pieces of gear, 2 pieces of embellished gear in AoE and Mythic Plus. If you're looking at single target stuff or 2 target stuff, Shadow Flame looks to be good. And yeah, there's that. Now, I've made double Shadow Flame. I made Shadow Flame boots and Shadow Flame belt. I'm rating at this point. Plus is certainly a thing I'm going to do at some point, hopefully more competitively this season as well. But I think for early on, I know for early on raid prog, especially these bosses being so patchwork based and Aberrus, double Shadow Flame looks to be your best embellishment combination. Either on, I think boots are a pretty safe craft, and then in either shoulders if you have 4 pieces of tier, not including your shoulder set, or either belt or bracers necessarily. Just run sims for that. At the same time, this is very important. If you have a bad weapon, for example, weapon like a one-hander is a very solid craft. It has more DPS than a Shadow Flame embellishment. I have a good weapon, so I didn't make a one-hander. But if you have a bad weapon, you can craft a one-hander, have a decent offhand, and still gain a lot of raw damage. You want to run your own sims for that. I would not really recommend making a staff because staves cost 2 sparks versus a one-hander being 1. So you can make a one-hander, have an offhand laying around, and then craft Shadow Flame boots or whatever, for example, instead of just making a staff and taking 2 sparks. But either way, if you have a bad weapon, making weapon is certainly worthwhile, and then make a Shadow Flame embellishment. Make a Shadow Flame boots, Shadow Flame belt, whatever, what have you, for general Aberrus purposes. Mythic Plus down the line, when you get more sparks, Azure Weave does indeed currently look to likely be the play. Moving on from there, getting a lot of questions as well about the Eranog rings, the one that increases fire damage, this one right here, Diurna's Chosen. So we know for Demo and Destro that it is very good for all of last patch, but Affliction was a little off because there really weren't great ways to proc it and things, right? When the eyeball was nerfed and all that kind of stuff. Now, I've run sims here for Destro, Demo, and AF in single target. Keep in mind, this ring doesn't really scale very well in AoE, so you'll want to play this ring, not play this ring in like Mythic Plus or heavy AoE and that kind of stuff. But I wanted to see if rings in this patch at 447 or 450 with a socket would beat out Seal of Diurna's Chosen. What you can see here is that this is the Diurna's Chosen sim here, 122713. This ring here from Freehold with a socket, 447 DPS loss. The 450 ring from Echoed Notherian, 137. This ring from Underrot being 358, and this ring here being Crit Mastery actually from, I believe, Neltharis, yeah, is a 700 DPS upgrade, being 447 with a socket as well. Now, this will vary a lot from character to character based on your own secondary stats, so you should run your own sims, but down the line, when we get more vaults coming in, have sockets coming in from the vault as well, or if you get lucky and get a socketed ring next week or tomorrow or whenever, there are some options that are certainly going to be better than Diurna's Chosen for Destro. This ring here is from Brewkeeper herself. It obviously gets replaced before this ring does for Destro and Demo, but there are some rings that are better than the Eranog ring for Warlock in, I guess, the end game of S2 and 10.1. Looking at Demonology here, so 450 ring, downgrade. Pulsing Veins, downgrade. Questionable Loyalties, also downgrade. Scalebane Signet, once again, the Crit Mastery ring from Neltharis with a socket, for me, is about a 300 DPS increase over Seal of Diurna's Chosen. Once again, you want to run your own sims. They will vary, but there is indeed still a bit of a upgrade out there. Probably a few of them if you sim all the rings comparatively to Eranog ring. At the same time, this also means if you're playing Eranog ring right here, you probably have basically what is equal to a very good ring in season 2 so far. So yeah, Destro and Demo, there are better options, but there are sort of few and far between. And for Affliction, AF can proc the ring. From what I've seen in sims and things, Shadow Flame Embellishment can indeed proc the Eranog ring from what I've seen. I haven't confirmed it myself, but I have seen it procking in sims. But I mean, at the same time, not as much as Destro and Demo. I mean, this ring here being 200 DPS, this being 4 450, this being 900, this one being 1.2k. So there are certainly better options for Affliction out there. But once again, 447 with a socket, 450 with a socket aren't too easy to obtain. Aren't too easy to obtain at this point in the patch. But still, TLDR, Eranog ring will likely go, just not as early as we may have thought. So getting into power infusion timings for Demonology, a lot of questions about this over the past week or so. Want to cover it here. We're going to use Shock as, I guess, our template, our example, whatever, because there's timings in this fight that work well with both. Now, number one, if you don't have Clash Trinket as Demonology, I'm sorry, you can play the spec perfectly, but your damage is not be very good. I don't have it either. It sucks. It is what it is. It is a wall of Clash Trinkets with a few builds playing Incarnate Icon, probably getting pretty lucky Pit Lord procs, probably also just great players, but TLDR, if you don't have Clash Trinket, pretty unfortunate. Either way, so the way power infusion works for Demonology Warlock, it depends who's giving you the power infusion. If it's a Shadow Priest, the timings will change based on a Shadow Priest PI versus a Healer PI. Shadow Priest is not going to hold power infusion for you. They're going to pop it with their CDs and give it to you when they're CDing. So it makes it a bit more of a headache to try and play around as Demonology. If they're behind, it's going to scuff your damage, but, you know, well, it is what it is. So the way this works, I have two parses here. I have one from Beekeeping. I have one from, I believe this is Sting. There we go. So Beekeeping here, receive power infusion from a healer. Now, the way it works from a healer is that the healer will hold their power infusion basically for every nether portal that you have. For the most part, fight duration and things will dictate this, right? So for example, Rashok is actually a great example here. So let's go to actual buffs here. So we'll go to buffs, pull this up. So he gets power infusion on pull with nether portal on stuff here at 310, and then again at 609 here, which is a little risky depending how things go. It worked out okay for them, I guess, because the fight ended at about 636 for them, but it's very tight on this fight. The Shadow Priest Warlock, however, gets PI, the buffs here, at 0, 2, 4, and 6, unsurprisingly, because that's how Shadow Priest cooldowns work with PI. If you go to their actual cast here as well, so their Tyrants are going to be at 0, 2, hold up, 0, 2, 4, and 6 with every single power infusion. You push back your Tyrant half a minute to align with the Shadow Priest power infusion. To a similar extent, Nether Portal, also 0 on pull basically, and 4 minutes to align with this power infusion right here, being the third one of the fight, 0, 2, 4 right here. You hold Portal for a minute to align with your third Tyrant. It's also held for half a minute. So it sort of works out okay. PI is very strong for Demonology Warlock with Clash Trinket, so this is the best way to do this with Shadow Priest PIs and things. Once again, fight times will dictate how this works, but that's how it goes. Now going back to the actual healing, like the healer PI one here, right? As a Warlock getting a healer PI, you call for the PI. So once again, Beekeeping's PIs, basically 0, 310, and then 610. I've seen both like 530 and 610 on Rashok. Pulling up their actual cast, however, this will show a few things. So their cast, they end up Tyranting, right here, 0, or on pull, 130. This Tyrant here is a raw Tyrant, no power infusion, nothing. This Tyrant here is with Nether Portal. This is with PI. Once again, here, 310 with 313. Tyrant. These two coincide. Tyrant, PI. This has Nether Portal in it as well. Now, right here at 444, this Tyrant does not have PI. It's once again another natty Tyrant. You have one here at 616. Which is getting PI again, roughly 3 minutes later. Now, Rashok's a fight that ends around 6:30-ish, give or take. So you have your second potion at the 5-minute mark. Now, the way I approach this fight, and others did as well, is that we do the same thing here. You basically would Tyrant on pull, 139 natty Tyrant, no PI if you're getting a healer PI. Right here at the 3-minute mark, you would get power infusion, but you wouldn't Nether Portal, right? You'd push the portal all the way to 530. So you'd essentially hold that Tyrant from the 330-ish mark to 530, holding it for about a half minute until that PI comes back up from the Healing Priest, and then have big Nether Portal, big Tyrant, big Potion, all at the 530 mark, getting PI basically right about here instead of here. Because if you're Tyranting here and things, your Pit Lord spawns at the end of the portal. If you're portaling right about, let's see where they portaled. They portaled, I believe, right at probably about 6. Let's see here. Where's portal? They portaled at about 6:01. So a really tight portal cast here. So it ends about 6:16, I believe, roughly, give or take. I think it's 15 seconds, right? I think. Yeah, there you go. 6:16. So Pit Lord's basically out and the fight dies. If the fight ends early for whatever reason, you might not get full Pit Lord value. So we sort of erred on the side of caution and popped it at 5:30-ish. But either way, you can do either here. But the big thing, if you're a Warlock getting a healer PI, the healer should PI you with basically every nether portal. But if you're a Warlock getting a Shadow Priest PI, you get PI'd every 2 minutes from the Shadow Priest based on their cooldowns, and you'll push Tyrant back half a minute. So 0, 2, 4, 6 portals at 0 and 4. And once again, fight time can sort of change how this works. Once again, if it's a 5.5 minute fight or 6 minute fight, you know, you might go, once again, getting a healer PI on pull, getting it at 3:30, and then getting it again at 5:30 just before the fight dies. So it depends a lot, but takeaway here is Shadow Priest PI is every 2 minutes, hold Tyrant half a minute, and hold portal for a whole minute to 4 minute mark. If you're getting a healer PI, the healer will hold PI for every nether portal you have as long as the fight duration dictates that. So hopefully that helped explain the complicated, convoluted timings that are Power Infusion and Demonology. Please remove PI from the game. So thanks for watching, guys. That wraps it up. Hopefully answers the questions you might have had about Eranog rings or embellishment sims or Demonology PIs. I think we covered it. We covered basically all of it here. If it was a bit rambly, I'm sorry. It's 5 in the morning. We had a long stream tonight and stuff. I'm a little tired, but want to get this video out as fast as possible. Been getting a lot of questions about stuff over the past few weeks and all that. So yeah, hopefully it helped out. Like always, week wars add-ons, links to Twitch and Discord down below. We're all for free for you guys. To a similar extent, I also want to give a huge shout out to my patrons before you end the video, guys. Like always, thank you a million times for all the support on Patreon. Legit, I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here, as well as down below in the video description. Even with Warlock not being necessarily as good as we may have thought heading into Aberrus and things like that, Lock is still very solid. A lot of the demo kill times, I guess boss kill times, are awkward for Demonology. Rashok being 636, if you're very tight with cooldowns, it can be very good. At the same time, if it's a little, it's tight. Magmarax being 5.5 minutes, pretty awkward. A lot of movement this tier, but overall, I think Lock's in a pretty good spot. We're one of the better ranges this tier, putting aside Shadow Priest and Dev Evoker. They're just pretty strong, but hopefully 10.15 brings some changes for Lock. Maybe some Destro stuff, some Madness stuff. If not 10.2, I will have a feedback video coming out probably within the next week or so, talking about Warlock in 0.5, like 10.15. And if not, hopefully it at least sets the stage for patch 10.2, because yeah, a few minor changes in Warlock is a lot more fun than what it currently is now. So, and don't get me wrong, we're still sort of fun, but yeah. So, all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you like the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. It helps out a ton. And I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.